Good morning to all of you, and once again, welcome to this fresh recording of risk assessment. In risk assessment, today, what we are going to do is see three types of risk assessment techniques. One being the risk assessment form, the second being the risk severity matrix, the third being the failure mode effect analysis, which is very commonly used in the industry. So documentation of scenario analysis is generally done using these three methods, that is the risk assessment form, the risk severity matrix, and failure mode and effects analysis. What we'll do is that we'll go through one of the examples where we are upgrading from Windows 7 to Windows 8, and what Microsoft has done is that it has done some scenario analysis. So there are risk events that they have listed out. Then what they have done is that they have also listed out the likelihood of that event happening, the impact that it is going to have on the system, the detection difficulty which the user will be able to detect, and also when this event is likely to be triggered. So if you see, interface problems being one of the risk event, the likelihood is 4. It all depends on the hardware of the system, because Microsoft feels that the hardware of the system plays an important role in the interface problems. So impact is also 4, but then the detection difficulty level is also 4. Generally this happens when the conversion is done from 7 to 8. System freezing. So interface problems are relatively easier to detect. So let us come at system freezing. System freezing has a likelihood of 2. Impact is going to be very high, so 5 means that it is going to have a maximum impact, which would obviously mean that you may have an unstable operating system where the earlier system also may not work, and then this is very easy to recognize that detection difficulty is going to be easier, because as the system freezes, the computer completely stops operating in the mode that it is known as hang-ups, or say hanging of the computer, and this generally happens when there's a startup of the new system. Now because of this two problems, there could be a user backlash. This user backlash happening because of these two systems has a likelihood of 4. The impact level is going to be 3, because Microsoft understands it has a certain level of reputation, and since it expects the users to have the plug and play system, therefore there is very less likely that it will have some severity as far as user backlash is concerned. But then the detection difficulty is also low, and this generally happens post installation, and this generally happens in the form of the feedbacks that the company receives from various social media, from the customers directly. However, sometimes it becomes very difficult to analyze the mood of the customers also, and therefore the detection difficulty is kept at 3. Because of the interface problems, or because of the upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 8, hardware malfunctioning happening, the likelihood of that happening is going to be 1 or almost nil. But then the impact is going to be very high, and so is also going to be the difficulty level, because the moment hardware malfunctions, the user immediately comes to know about that, and this happens after the installation is done. So you'll see risk assessment form is one of the tools to do the risk assessment. Now the same thing can be put in the form of a risk severity matrix, where you have impact versus likelihood. The red zone indicating the major risks, so which have been identified as interface problems and system freezing. The yellow zone being the moderate risk zone, so user backlash and hardware malfunctions are considered to be the yellow zone, and green zone is basically a minor risk, so there are no minor risks associated with that installation, which Microsoft has suggested to the user, that is from upgrading from Windows 7 to Windows 8. Now let us go on to another example and another tool, that is failure mode and defect analysis, commonly known as FMEA. And FMEA is one of the most versatile tools and is very commonly used in various industries. So if we now take the case of a bank and an ATM machine of that bank, the failure mode effect analysis can be taken as one of the tools to do the risk assessment. So you'll see that the table is divided into 9 columns. So process step, potential failure mode, potential failure effect, then the severity, the potential causes of that severity, the occurrences, then current process controls, you have the detection, then the risk priority number, which is calculated as the product of severity into occurrence into detection, and then the actions that are recommended to overcome that. If you see, ATM pin authentication is one of the process step in setting up the ATM pins. So potential failure mode could be unauthorized access could be there. Potential failure effect, unauthorized cash withdrawals, very dissatisfied customer. The customer is obviously going to shout at the bank. How severe is the effect on the customer? Definitely very high. So 8 is allocated to that. So potential causes of this risk happening is lost or stolen ATM card. So you're not going to definitely give this ATM card of yours to somebody else to withdraw the money on your behalf. So unless the card is lost and stolen, this risk happening is going to be less. So therefore the occurrence is going to be lesser in that case. So the allocation for that on a scale of 1 to 10 is done is 3. Then the detection is how probable, or sorry, the current process controls. What are the existing controls that either prevent the failure mode from occurring or detect it should it occur. So block ATM card after 3 failed authentication attempts. So this is basically a part of POCA or mistake proofing that the bank resorts to. Now detection number is also given as 3 because it's very difficult for any stranger, for that matter, or any thief for that matter, to know your banking pin or ATM pin unless you have written that on the card. If it is there in your mind, it is very difficult, and rather it is next to impossible for him to get the pin right in 3 steps unless he is loaded with luck. So you'll see that the product comes out to 8 into 3 is 24 into 3 is 72. If you go on calculating the potential failure mode, so authentication failure is there, cash not disbursed, if you look at the process of dispensing the cash not being disbursed, or account debited but no cash is disbursed, and extra cash is disbursed. So you'll find that the risk priority number keeps on changing with every single risk. So for unauthorized process it is 72, for authentication failure it is 75, cash not disbursed it is 196, account debited but no cash disbursed is 96, and extra cash disbursed is 48. Out of that, the highest risk that is being assigned, or the highest number that is assigned, is 196 to cash not disbursed, which means that the likelihood of this risk is very high. So you have a dissatisfied customer, the ATM has run out of the cash, internal alert of low cash in ATM is there, but then the cash is not being replaced very frequently. So action that is recommended in this case is increase minimum cash threshold limit of heavily used ATMs to prevent out of cash instances. So instead of you can increase that limit from, suppose the ATM is able to hold say 15 lakhs of worth of cash, and if the limit for the other ATMs is say 2 lakhs, the limit threshold for the heavily used ATM could be 5 lakhs. So by the time the message goes out, obviously the bank is able to replace the cash. So once again, thanks a lot for listening to this video. This is again a 10-minute video that I've put out for you in the form of the risk assessment tools that the companies normally use. Thank you.